So living in New York is very expensive. Luckily, Columbia University has a lot of options, but you don't need to be in the US. You can come back home.
And what amount of time goes into building a real quality application?
I applied to Columbia SIPA, School of International Public Affairs, Harvard Kennedy School, and London School of Economics. It's a very international school. People from across the range, like bureaucrats, politicians, ex-politicians. The conversations were amazing.
What all did you do before you applied for your Master's in Public Administration?
Yeah, so after graduating from Kanpur, I worked with Ola Cabs.
Hello aspirants. Welcome to another episode of Videshi Chai. In today's podcast, we have an amazing mentor for you. He graduated in Public Administration from Columbia University. Rishabh Bansal belongs to a joint business family who were hoping that he too would grow up to a businessman. But Rishabh was always into theoretical physics and outer space. So much so that he read A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking in class 6 out of curiosity. This shaped his academic journey to reach IIT Kanpur. From there, his experiences led him to pursue a Master's in Public Administration from Columbia University. There's a lot to learn from his experience. Let's dive right in. I love data. It resolves misinformation. Let's talk to experts, analyze news, and smartly plan your study abroad journey. Hello aspirants, welcome to Videshi Chai. Hello Rishabh, welcome to Videshi Chai.
Hi Jainesh, thanks for having me here.
It's our pleasure. So you're in India for a business trip, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
What is it that you do?
So I work for a climate philanthropy, and my work, basically I work on climate change, and we see where are those opportunities for India, where India can grow sustainably while also being doing those things where it can build things better that are more climate friendly. As you know that India is one of those countries which is going to get impacted by climate change a lot.
Yeah.
We can feel the heat strokes in Delhi right now. So how do we build better? We're going to get a lot of ACs online. So how do we do it better and make our lives better?
That's so cool.
Yeah, thanks.
You did your undergrad at IIT Kanpur.
Yeah.
That's a very unusual career path for somebody who has done their undergrad at one of the premier colleges in the country to go and study Masters in Public Administration. So what prompted this particular career choice for you?
Sure. So looking back at my journey, I realize now that impact was something that always made sense to me. I always wanted to do something meaningful. And engineering was a choice when I was young. Science used to be very cool. You can solve problems. So problem solving, impact kind of correlated for me.
Yeah.
And I chose that field, science, engineering, to have that impact. But I was very fortunate. I went to IIT Kanpur. And I had amazing people around me, a lot of students and everything. So I got exposure to a lot of problems, social problems, challenges people had. And I felt there are so many problems out there that one can solve. Be it in education, be it in health. So there was that thought. So when I was graduating from IIT, I read this book called Poor Economics. So it was very interesting, fascinating. So that prompted me to explore the development sector. I worked in health sector and then I decided to pursue Master in Public Administration.
Very nice. So, IIT Kanpur, Columbia, fantastic schools. Were you always a straight A student when you were growing up?
Yeah, growing up I was. Yeah.
Very, very nice. So parents must be super happy, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And where did you grow up? Where were you born?
So I'm born and brought up in Delhi, northern part of Delhi, area called Model Town. So come from a business family. My parents were always proud, as you said, about my grades and everything.
Tell us a little bit about your journey from your undergrad at IIT Kanpur. What all did you do before you applied for your Master's in Public Administration?
Yeah. So after graduating from Kanpur, I worked with Ola Cabs for a year and a half in Bangalore. It was exciting, solving problems, using technology, everything. So it was quite fun. But I realized that I had some interest towards development economics. Some books I was reading, some friends, some conversations. So I made a shift. So I shifted to public health.
Got it.
So I was working with an organization in Lucknow. And we were working with the government of Uttar Pradesh on health and nutrition topics.
Got it.
Like building the capacity of the state to deliver these services. So it was a 4-year experience and amazing, terrific systems building experience on the ground. And it kind of gave me that validation that this is something I enjoy and I would like to do it for my life.
Yeah.
So I made that choice then.
Very interesting. Just to give our listeners a sense of what that kind of work is like, could you maybe talk about one example of a project that you guys worked on?
Sure. Okay. So, for example, in any state, there are a lot of ambulances.
Yeah.
And this is something that the government manages. But there's a lot of inefficiency in that thing because there's no technology. There is some contracting. There are like 3,500 ambulances in a state for a 108 number for emergency. And they're supposed to come in 35 minutes. But it's such a big state, Uttar Pradesh. So difficult to do all those things. So my role here came that I helped the government in understanding what the ICT infrastructure could be around that and how can you make a business model around that. And the government can create that tender document, go out, bid out, get a vendor who delivers everything XYZ, be it call center, technology, an application, or maybe a SMS kind of a situation where people can just click on that and they can see where their ambulance is. So very small things, but it gives confidence to the people who are there on the other side. So this was one of the projects I got to work on, and it's something that's still happening decently. So I'm happy.
That was very interesting. And as I think about the problem, I'm sure it helps save unnecessary expenditure for the government as well. People might be fleecing the government if there's no accurate tracking, etc.
True. That was a huge problem. A lot of payments were stuck. People weren't getting paid because these systems are not in place. They used to get people sign on sheets and those used to be collected and everything. But with a system, the system provides an additional layer. So those things were still happening. But you can verify these things in real time using telecom, internet, all those things where the locations were. And so it's easier for everyone, even in the government, to process those payments because they have something to validate against.
Wow.
So it's one use of technology, but I think there are so many opportunities in India. We are such a big country, so much scope for efficiency. So
you decided to pursue a career in public administration. Why did you choose to get your master's degree abroad? There are so many good colleges in India as well.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I actually tried what are the colleges in India that offer this particular course. And I feel that in India, this is still a developing field. For a policy course, it's a very interdisciplinary topic. We need people from political sciences, from economics, development economics, behavioral economics, like a lot of different fields coming together. And unfortunately, I feel maybe things are changing now. But we are not yet there. The institutions abroad, they have been there for many years and they have amazing scholarships for professors. And it's a different experience, I'll say, for this particular topic out there. But I know that IIMs also offer some courses. NLU offers some policy courses. People are doing great, but we need more faculty, more researchers, more practitioners in India.
Is that a goal for you as well, personally? After doing, giving a bit back to the society, maybe giving a bit to the academy as well?
I'm not very sure. Like currently, I enjoy my work, action on the field, moving things. But I hope as I mature in life and I have some knowledge that I can give back, I would love to be a part of that. But currently, it's not a part of any plans.
Sure. Yeah. When did you graduate from MPA?
From MPA 2023, last year.
Got it.
Around the same time. Yeah.
So tell us about your application process, because I'm sure this is something that a lot of our viewers would love to understand. How do you apply for an MPA program? Which are some of the top colleges that they can apply to? And what are the elements in your profile overall that will help you get selected to a good program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of application, it's like any other master's application you have. You need to give a GRE, sometimes some other examination based on other requirements of the colleges you are applying to. So for my case, I applied to Columbia SIPA, School of International Public Affairs, Harvard Kennedy School, and London School of Economics.
Got it.
And the process started somewhere in November or December, first week of November and first week of December. Those were the timings to submit the application. And in terms of application, you basically have a few essays you have to write, and you need letter of recommendations. And so basically the essays are the main thing, cut short. GRE, you can study, you can get that number. There's a score. You cross that score, everyone considers you. That's not a deal breaker, but the essays are very powerful, very important. And if you have some experience before that, like I was fortunate to have that experience. It helps you give you that clarity what you want to do. Why you want to study, and if there are any faculty that excites you that you want to study with or work with in that university. So I think those are some elements that make your application strong.
So building on that, did you then do research on which are the right professors you would want to work with, and what amount of time goes into building a real quality application covering all of that?
Yeah, I did that research, and I suggest to anyone who's currently working on applications to talk to as many people as possible in the college. And people are very open to speak about their experience and everything. Yeah. I was very fortunate. I had a very good friends, 3-4 friends who had this opportunity of studying in public policy here and there. So they gave me a lot of tips. Because for me, I was like, I like this particular thing, but I didn't know what topic it fell under.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was very interested in the capacity building in India, like the administrative services and everything.
Yeah.
The incentives are not right. There are a lot of leakages in the system.
Yeah.
So, how do you build those incentives right? So, a friend of mine suggested me that, you should look at more game theory kind of stuff where you can actually minimize those adverse incentives that people have. So I wrote to that professor, spoke to him even while applying for the college. And it was a good, it didn't matter much for the application maybe, but when I was in campus, I could meet him and we had an amazing conversation. I took his course. I learned a lot. So I think, so it gives you that direction. It validates your assumptions as well. Why you want to study. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
So I think it's great to talk to people. And
all right, let's shift gears. What about financing? Were you able to finance it from your own savings, or did you have to take a loan? Did you get a scholarship? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did not have any savings because my job back in UP, I took a massive pay cut to work there and I was excited. So I did that. Didn't have any savings, but I applied for a loan and it was tough. I think in my whole journey, I think the financing was a tricky part all the time. Tuition fee is quite large for Columbia University and so are the living expenses living in New York. So I had applied for loans and I did not get the full amount of the tuition fee I needed from the loans. So I got a percentage of it. I'll say 60% maybe. But then I figured out things and things ended well.
Yeah.
But it was tricky.
Let's talk about your experience at Columbia, both in and out of the school. Right. So, how it was, as you said, living on what I would call a stretched budget. It's an expensive city. You were you were using a loan. So I'm assuming you were on a shoestring budget. How was that experience? What kind of, trade-offs did you have to make to get a quality education compared to your lifestyle in India? And then a little bit about your class experience, the kind of education that you were expecting. Did you get that? The overall class experience that you were expecting. Were you able to get that from your experience at Columbia University?
Sure. So I'll start with the first point, living in New York. So living in New York is very expensive. Luckily, Columbia University has a lot of options where they have a lot of buildings near the campus that they give Columbia housing. So I was lucky to get a nice place, quite beautiful and comparatively cheaper. It was still expensive, but it was among the cheapest places in New York that I know even now.
Yeah.
And so the way I used to cover my expenses was, so I can share maybe the rent. So maybe I used to pay $1,200 per month basically for my place in New York. It was a shared apartment.
Got it.
And I was also working as a research assistant at the college. So firstly, it gave me money for my monthly expenses, and secondly, it gave me a lot of experience working with the academia, building that experience in the US. That we can maybe talk about later. So building that thing. So I roughly was able to manage the inflow I had from that job to my expenses. So I wasn't eating out of my loan for my
Got it. And what about your experience on the academic side?
Okay. On the academic side, it was an amazing experience. I wasn't that sure that this is what I'm going for. I expected there'll be some few classes, some good experiences. But I love my experience at Columbia. Like the classes, the professors, the people. Also, I think so New York City, a lot of researchers want to live there. So they end up teaching in Columbia. So some amazing faculty, very open to discussing, people asking them questions, questioning their assumptions. Amazing. I love the whole economic and the quantitative experience. And I also transitioned from public health to climate change and energy sector at Columbia SIPA, School of International Public Affairs. Had that not been there or some other college, I don't know. But things just...
Why did you make that change? What prompted it?
That's another great question. My experience working in public health gave me validation that this is something I like working, whatever, solving problems, strengthening systems. And I thought now I'm going to work in this sector for my life. I thought let's pick a big problem. So climate change, definitely, it's a big problem. We don't know what are the scientific solutions, like 100%. Maybe in health we know it's a problem of implementation, the political economy of things. But here it was so much to do. And secondly, I like being out in the environment, in the nature. So it just resonated a lot with me.
Got it.
So plus India, it's gonna face a lot of repercussions of global climate change. So I thought this is something that would be very meaningful in my journey.
And what about peer learning? I'm sure you were surrounded by classmates, as you mentioned, many of them driven individuals like you, driven by impact, and from different parts of the globe as well.
Yeah, it's a very international school. SIPA is the most international school. Like, I don't know how many countries, 100 plus countries, folks were there in the policy program. And people from across the range, like bureaucrats, politicians, ex-politicians, from different countries, consultants, definitely, a lot of people like me working in the civil society, a lot of researchers, a lot of quant people. So the conversations were amazing. Like most of the times we did not agree to anything, but I think that was the most beautiful part because we were learning so many different perspectives, even though we weren't agreeing with them. So also I think so the art of not agreeing but having that conversation, I think that's something that that was strengthened at SIPA So I'm really glad I had all my colleagues, all my friends as well. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Now, given your experience, especially both on the peer side as well as the pure academic side, what would be the top 3 things that you would say you've taken away from your experience at Columbia University and that apply to the job that you are in right now?
Okay. 3 things. So one thing I feel a lot of times the academia and the real world or the people who are implementing things, they have a different speed, different paces, different levels of problem that they're trying to solve. So there is a need for that connection, a bridge where a lot of practitioners fulfill that place. Like people who can read those research papers, connect them back or talk to those academia folks regularly to give them, this is the thing we're struggling with. So that is what a lot of people were doing at SIPA, and I think that's a big gap. So I think that's something that I learned. The second, I'll say that it's easy to things are complicated. But if you think they're very complicated, you won't be able to solve them. You have to move. You have to take some leadership role. You might not be the person who speaks out, go on stage, but you can do your part in a way. But you have to act basically. If you don't feel right about something. That's something I learned from Columbia.
I agree for myself. No boardroom, no drawing room conversation. Just do it.
Just do it. We'll see what happens then. We learn from it. And the third is failures are not always bad. A lot of times we fail and a lot of times we are just worried about failing. I think failures are okay. They are actually good sometimes. It doesn't mean you always fail, but you should be open. You should, again, I think points are connected in some way. So keep trying, keep learning, and try to be less fearful of failing. So
those are very good takeaways. Right. So, we've seen a lot of news and coverage around a lot of Indian students getting injured, also killed in the US over the last year or so. It's frankly a bit scary for students who are wanting to make their journey to the US for higher education. As somebody who's studied there and you probably moved around in the US as well, you live in California right now. What's your experience been as a student, as an Indian living in the US, your personal experience on the level of safety that Indian students going to the US can expect? And what should they do, to stay away from trouble, if you will?
Yeah, it's a very sensitive thing, and a lot of people are getting injured, getting impacted by it. I don't have so many tips, but from my experience, what I've seen is in New York, there have been cases of mugging, of people getting hurt. My own roommate, he got mugged one day. He was at subway station. Someone came, they thrashed him and whatever.
Oh my God.
So it can be tricky. It's a big city, a lot of challenges, homelessness and other issues as well. So one has to be safe, be with more friends if you're later at night. and avoid crossing big parks during the night time. You have to be a bit careful. Take cabs if you can afford and it's late at night. So those are few things. Yeah. But you have to be careful and you have to be on the lookout. And if someone does something to you or says something to you particularly, not does, so try eye contacts because people are just looking for some engagement and some. So yeah, but I don't have a very solid suggestion there. It's a tough situation. I hope the country is also, it's a big stress on the country itself.
Yeah.
So I hope they overcome it soon.
And is this an escalation of events that has happened in the recent past, or is it more of the same, or rather, I would say, lack of improvement rather than escalation?
I think there might be a bit escalation. The whole world is becoming more divided. So that's a challenge. Like as we are developing, we are moving around. People who used to work in their own town, they had jobs, stuff.
Yeah.
But as economy grow, there are opportunities. Someone else who's more qualified, and they're right to come and work there. But these people, they're feeling insecure. And then some people take advantage to create those things. So it's an international global phenomenon, I will say. And I hope we go back a bit. But I feel it's increasing incrementally.
So really the takeaway for the audience here is really, if you are planning for higher education abroad, once you go to your destination, stick in groups, avoid solo journeys, especially late in the night. And isolated incidents happen. If you take these safety measures, you'll be all right, or you're likelier to be all right.
One more thing I'll add to that is a lot of time incidents happen and people feel, oh, it's fine, and they live with it. But it somehow impacts them mentally. And it's good to share things with your friends, with someone you can trust. Maybe with your parents, you won't be able to share because you're in a different country. They might get worried. That's a real thing, right? You don't want your parents to be worried when you're. So have that friend circle that you can share things and you can do something. So.
And you mentioned your roommate, the one who got mugged, right? So did he report that incident to the police? Yeah. And were they responsive, or did you feel some sort of bias?
They caught people. They also called him to identify the perpetrators, so they were able to find.
Got it. So you didn't feel a bias, if you will, against Indian students. That it's just the general crime rate was.
Things could happen. Yeah, if it is not a bias, I think so in a systemic way. They could be. There are problems. But I feel it's more in the instance some individuals may do something that might not be very right. But as a system, it was a good system.
Well,
and we used to receive letters, there's this hearing and also. But it got resolved and he's comfortable. So he's confident. So I think that's the outcome that the system needs to deliver to him. So
thank God for that. And absolutely, as you said, right? So because there was restitution, that has helped him kind of be at peace with it more than had there been no restitution at all. Let's change topics to the most important topic for students who are listening to this, and that's placements. Okay. So, in India, it's very easy, nice and simple. If you're an engineering student, companies come to the campus and you interview them. It's a very quick, or rather straightforward, I should say, process to get placed. How did it work for you in the US, in Columbia generally, in your program specifically? And what have you learned from your own experience and from experience of your peers and friends, and culminate all of that into what should students do in order to best prepare themselves to get the right placements?
Sure. So that's a very important question. Thanks for asking that. So in terms of placement, as you said, we have campus placements here in India. That's not a thing in the US. So there, people expect you reach out to them, go to events. LinkedIn is a great tool. You message people, have a conversation with them, ask like 10-15 minutes of their time. And you don't need to do this just for the job. When you're in the college, you can set up those times, understand what roles you want to do. And a lot of people get their jobs through this pathway. So they're also happy to sharing their experiences. In my case, I did that a lot. I reached out to people. If I liked, this is something that makes sense to me, I would like to end up here. So I'll message that person on LinkedIn. A lot of times we don't get a response, but I think a 10-20% response rate is brilliant. So you have to message a lot and you get these calls, you talk to these people, you ask them about what their work is exactly. And also I think so during this time, you see how people actually explain their work. their work experience. So that kind of gives you that confidence how you will do that when you are in an interview. So I really found it to be very powerful. I feel coming from India, we feel that this is something not okay. Like, why are we reaching out? We are worthy. We'll find something. But I feel that there are some pros in this process of being vulnerable, of just talking out to people and everything. You learn, you become more confident. So I highly recommend people do that. That's one part. The other part, I realized that I had worked in India for almost... But I was quite certain that my experience from India wasn't directly transferable to the US. Had I worked for, let's say, BCG, McKinsey, maybe it would have been easier to translate that experience. There's more standardization. But in other cases, it's not the case. The American firms don't know the name of the lot of Indian companies. And they're not able to understand how this translates in their economy. Early on, I understood that. And I tried working at Columbia. I worked with some amazing professors as the research assistants, wrote reports, did research, some projects, did an internship. I worked, so if anyone is into climate, so EDF Climate Core was something I participated in. And they gave me a lot of experience. So I think you need a lot of those experiences in the US as much as you can. Some small projects, some internships that are more relatable to the people. And once you have their attention to that, then you can maybe use your Indian experience as well. But you need to invest in that. Otherwise, sometimes it might be tricky.
And what about the part of actually looking out for placements? How did that go for you? Was that more through networking, or were there some direct applications, etc.?
So I basically, after the internship, I was very active on networking. I made it a thing that I was speaking to at least 2-3 people every week, just understanding what they're doing, not exactly approaching them from a job perspective, or not looking at, jobs are available, let me talk to this person, but rather, what is your work? Tell me, and this is what I am interested in, this is what I've done. And does that make sense as per you for me to look a career here? And how's growth opportunity, all those things. And eventually when you see an opening, you reach out to these people and you ask them, this is something that excites me. Can you please refer me if you're comfortable? That would be a message on LinkedIn or wherever you connected with them. That was powerful. But for my case, I think I was very lucky. I applied on LinkedIn. A friend of mine, again, a person I had networked, an old colleague from IIT, great friend, mentor. So he sent me that link. You should apply for this. I was like, okay, it's interesting. I applied, I got through rounds, and it's a long process, but a smooth sail.
Very cool.
So I got my job before the final semester. So I was one of the lucky ones. I would say. The luck was on my side.
Very cool. Double clicking on the networking part, you mentioned it's culturally a bit awkward for us Indians. I agree with that, right? And what are some of the things that folks should do and avoid? Because I see when I get networking messages on LinkedIn, a majority of them I don't feel like responding to. With all the goodness in my heart, I feel like it's not a good message. From your own experience of being on both sides of it, I'm sure you're now getting messages from incoming students. What are some of the things to do and some of the things to avoid?
Okay, so I think it's very important to be clear what you're asking for. Is it a referral? Do you want to know about the company, about a role? Or you're interested in their journey itself. So you have to be clear about that. And I think it's very important to be upfront. What's the ask? Like, is it a 10 minute of their time? Is it a 20 minute of their time? So you put that, hi, I'm so-and-so at this place. I really liked what you're doing. This is something why I'm interested in this. Can I have 10 minutes of your time? Can we speak sometime? So you have to send a lot of messages and that takes some time. But I have had some amazing conversations with people. A lot of times I feel people are doing amazing work, but the way they articulate. So Americans are amazing at articulating their work and everything. So I think I learned a lot in that process itself, apart from networking and understanding. So,
and what's the value of good research before you're messaging someone?
It depends. It has its pros and cons. If you research, you'll spend a lot of time looking into things and everything. So it depends again, what time of your journey is it? If you started in time, you're early, I think you should put time in research.
I see.
So that you build your leads accordingly. And you have to be also conscious that only 10-20% people respond.
It's a volume game.
So you can't put your heart to that one message you send to someone. you have to be strong there, that there's a only 20% chance
Yeah.
you hear back. So it's a number game in some ways. So for me, I can give one tip. What I used to do was once a month, I used to sit for 4 hours, look at profiles, that were interesting to me, and send messages in at once.
Yeah.
And people take their own time. So it somehow happened. I always, in two, three calls I used to have like for every week. So that worked well for me.
Yeah.
And
That's a very good number.
so
Right. So now coming to your work experience, you've worked in India for several years. Now you're working for an American company. You've worked in the US. You also have India as a part of your portfolio. So you're working here. What is the difference between the work cultures of Indian organizations and US organizations?
I really, I'm liking the work culture in the US.
Yeah.
There are 2-3 aspects I'll say. One, the time thing. I think we'll get better.
Yeah.
We'll be more punctual in meetings, in whatever, respecting time, meetings getting cancelled, telling people in advance. So that's really good in the US. That
Yeah.
professionalism is there. You respect everyone's time, be it
Yeah.
a office assistant, anyone. So that's good. Second, I think hierarchy-wise, it's much flatter. Like in a big meeting, if there is a president of my company, and if there's a point, I think that doesn't make sense, or I can just speak up with a 50-member team in a room.
Yeah.
But in India, a lot of times, in my career earlier, I used to speak up because in like coming from IIT, and we've always been like, speak up whatever
Yeah.
if you have something logical. And I've been told that, oh, this is so senior person, you can't speak. You have to speak to me, and then message goes to someone,
Yeah.
and then that person will speak up.
Jurrat kaise hui?
I think flatter organization makes you more like hierarchy-wise, more confident and also
empowered.
more aspirational, more empowered. Though two and third, I'll say that in the US there are so many opportunities in the way a lot of capital moves from the US.
Yeah.
So even though we have so amazing talent in India, so many problems, so many things to do, so much to do, but
Yeah.
the capital flow is a bit slower. So there are more opportunities in the US.
Yeah.
People can be more flexible, move around in a better way, link their experiences. So you don't need to specialize into one thing. You can do
Yeah.
different things, and you can move. History major can be a very good consultant, for example, and stuff, which we don't see in India right now. But I hope as we evolve, we crack that.
Understood. Right. So it's been about a year since you completed your MBA. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been like,
As you look back, any regrets, anything that you think you should have done during that time period but didn't, and now wish you had?
yeah, definitely. I think so. I would have wanted to do more courses when I could. Like I got the job that I'm currently in. I started working with them in my final semester, like as a part-time, getting some to pay my tuition and everything, and also getting that experience even before moving to California for the work. If I'm giving a time machine and I can go back, maybe I start my job later. And that one last semester, I would have done many more courses because I knew exactly where I'm getting into and what things excite me as I was entering the last semester.
Very interesting. Well, that's all the questions I had. Any final, parting words, tips to students who want to move to the US for their higher education?
Yeah, I'll say that dream big.
Yeah.
The sky is the limit, and maybe not, maybe beyond. You have to take risks, but do some calculations, talk to people. You'll do good. Don't worry too much. And US is, I feel US is a great place for higher education.
Yeah.
They have really good university systems. But you don't need to be in the US. You can come back home. So I'll say study there and come back home as early as possible. So yeah.
Very interesting. Very cool. Thanks so much for your time. This was very, very helpful, and I'm sure it's going to add tons of value to all our viewers. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jainesh, for having me here.